Hey, how's it going? It's Craig. I'm out in the garage, and today I'm going to take a look at a faulty PrimeTest 100 from Seaward. Let's take a look. Okay, so I picked this up off eBay. I recently done my pat testing. No longer called pat testing. It's taking out the portable bit of pat testing. So it's electrical inspection and testing, I think it's called now. I should really know, shouldn't I? But I've done my qualification recently. A lot of it is fairly straightforward. There's a multiple choice exam that you have to sit, and it's actually pretty bloody hard. But I'm glad I passed it and got all the way through it. But I've got a pat test that I bought off of eBay. Bought it from quite a decent seller. I could see that he had a lot of Seaward projects that he's done before. Must be buying and selling them and making obviously a little bit of a business out of it. So I trusted them, decent feedback and everything. Went online, bought this one off them, and when it arrived, put my batteries in, connected it all up, worked lovely. So I tested my kettle, I tested the toaster, I tested the microwave, all the things in the kitchen in the house, just to test it and make sure it was all working. I put it away for a couple of weeks as I wanted to get it calibrated, and these types of things you have to get calibrated to make sure they're giving accurate readings. So I went online, found a place that was going to calibrate it for me, purchased that, and then you've got to send it off to them. So I left it a week or two, went back to use it before sending it off to calibrate it, and it just wouldn't power on. It just totally dead. So I messaged the seller on eBay, asked him if he's had any issues like this before. Not that I was blaming them at all, I just thought it was something I'd done. And he came back straight away and said, heat it up with a hairdryer. If you kept it in the garage, it's too cold. I was like, I haven't kept it in the garage, it's been in the house. But okay, seems like it's a bit of a jump into conclusions, knew what it was type of thing. So I was like, right, okay, I'll have a look what I can do. I opened it up quickly, had a look inside, and somebody's done a soldering job on it. I'll show you in a bit when we get opening it up again. It seems like they've taken a connector off and soldered wires straight to it, not very nicely. So I heated it over with a hot air gun from the soldering station, dropped the temperature down with that, and it worked. And I could switch it on and I could play with it and use it for things. And I thought, oh brilliant, I can send it off for testing. Left it for 24 hours, went back to use it again, and dead again. So I think this problem's a little bit more than just reflowing something with a bit of hot air every now and then. I obviously can't send it off for testing while it's doing that. I need to make sure that it's working properly before I send it off for testing. So today we're going to pop it open, have a look inside. I'm going to redo that power connector that's going to the board. There's a little bit of corrosion on the battery terminals, but I've seen much worse, so we'll have a look at it all. I might see if there's any broken joints, or if I can change out any of the capacitors if I got the matching ones here. I've got quite a few on my kit, but I know that obviously these are going to take fairly high capacity capacitors, because basically what this system does is it takes a charge and it emulates running a voltage or a connection through your equipment to test it and make sure it's all working. So those capacitors might have had a little bit of abuse over the past, because I don't know how old this is. It could be a year old, it could be 10 years old. I don't know how long the Seaward PrimeTest 100 has been running, but it could be a little bit out of date. If I haven't got them on my kit, I'll have to order some, and we'll go from there. So let's take it apart, have a look inside, and see if we can get it back up and running. Cool. So batteries in and they're fine, and I know if I test the voltage on them, if I put my tester here and switch it to 20 volts, and then we go 9.2, so 1.539, 9.2, yeah, so that's absolutely fine. I know that that is getting me the power that I need. And what's beeping? No way. It's come on. I have no idea what it's doing now. Wow, Okay, so it's powering up now, and that was just from literally connected just to read the voltage off of it with the multimeter, and it seemed to have spurred it into life somehow. But even when it was working before, it was working better than this. This wasn't the fault I had previously, so that's understandable because there's a low load on there. There's nothing connected. This one, look at that, it's just flashing around. This is what it should do. It should fail because obviously there's no continuity because it's not testing anything. You need to connect leads into the top of here and to your device. So yeah, understandably it's going to fail. And this, that low load is understandable as well for a class 2. And then a cord would just test like an extension lead and things like that. But yeah, this has gone really weird. So it wasn't doing this before. It was working fine when it was working. So I'm still going to take it apart. We're going to have a look at what, can't turn it off now. Take these batteries out. Still going to take it apart, give it a good tidy up inside. Hopefully if we can get it working properly, that's more life out of it than I've had in the last couple of days or weeks when I'm trying to use it. But that's worse functionality than I had it previously. Let's take it apart. There's 4 hex screws that we're going to have to take out, 2 top, 2 bottom. We'll take them out and have a look inside. Again, as I said, I think I'm just going to reflow things, have a look at if there's any crack joints, have a look at what the capacitors are, and we'll go from there. Cool. Okay, so this is the inside of it. I've taken it apart once before just to do that heat up on it. A lot of cables connected. This, where the batteries are connected, is absolutely terrible. I don't know what they've done. It looks all burnt up and things, so let's have a look. See that on here. It's a right mess. Whoever soldered that in, yeah, they burned through things there. So I'm going to take that out, those wires out for the positive and negative there. See what kind of is underneath it. I'm hoping it's a through hole and I can solder back into the via type that way. If not, I'll clean it up and see if we can resolder it properly. They've also soldered these. That one's not too bad, although there's lots of solder dripped inside of there and they melted a bit. But this one, let's stay on that. Okay, so all of that, the continuity works, and obviously it's sending us the voltages coming through. But yeah, it's not the best of jobs. So what I'm going to do first of all is disconnect all these. These are just all the connectors from the interfaces right at the top, and there's one right down the bottom here for this plug socket, so we can disconnect these. These all only go in one way and they all different sizes, so gives us a little bit of movement, so we can move that aside. I'll desolder those in a second, and then we'll have a look at the rest of it, see what else we can do with it. Cool. There we go. We've got the casing and the buttons. Okay, so the board itself is looking a bit grubby, and things are around here. It's very, I don't know whether it's dusty or a little bit of corrosion on some of these chips up here. So the main chips are where I'm worried the most. The capacitors and resistors and things, I'm not going to get into that level of detail. That's way beyond me to know exactly where and what things are doing. I just want to give it a clean up. I'll swap this capacitor out as well. That capacitor, let's have a look at it. It's a 150 microfarad 25 volt, so we can swap that out. I've probably got a spare one of them in the kit. I don't know what these are. I'll have to have a look into seeing what they are. And then there's a couple of coils on here. I don't know whether the coil would be any different when you heat it up or not. I'm not sure whether that would. A couple of power regs on the top as well, which we can clean up and reflow if needed. This power connector, where let me zoom in for you, where they've soldered, and a bit brutally, this is a bit of a mess. So where they've soldered that, the wires back on, they've done a bit of a dodgy job on it. So I'm going to clean this up, clean it up from the other side, give the board just a good cleaning over, to be honest, and then see if we can get any life out of it and if it works properly as it should have, and it did a couple of weeks ago. Other than that, we'll put it all back together once we've done the capacitor and given it a clean, see where we get to, and see what we need to do next. Cool. What on earth have they done? Okay, time to give it a scrub with my isopropyl. This is 99.8% alcohol, so pretty much pure alcohol. So we're going to give it a clean over with that first of all. I just had a look at my spares and I don't have a 150 microfarad capacitor, so I'm going to have to order some capacitors in just to swap that one out, which I might do anyway. Put a bit of isopropyl into my bowl, and we're going to give this a good clean it all over. Then we'll have a look if we need to reflow anything afterwards with the soldering iron. Cool. Okay, let's try and get rid of these pins that they've stuck in. I think it was meant to be a connector on there originally, so I'm just going to flux up the one side of it. There's not much on this side anyway. I'll flux it up. Maybe might have to add a little bit more solder in a bit, but at the moment I'm just going to try and use a bit of desoldering braid to suck away the solder from this side. Yeah, that pin's loose already. Okay, and then from this side I'm going to need to get these pins out. I'm going to need to try and heat them and pull them. Here's one pin out. Okay, so I've taken those pins out, and as you can see here, there's two nice clear wires now. There's a bit of surface protection taken off the top of that circuit board. I'll just test it with a continuity just to make sure it's running through to where it should be, but I think it'll be fine. From there, yeah, that's working fine, and to, yeah, they're fine. The other thing I want to check is the other side of it. I think it should have had one of these 2-pin connectors on it, and they've removed it and gone obviously straight to putting pins in there, or they've taken the plastic off for some reason. But these look a little bit worse. There looks to be a lot less solder on these, so I might put a little bit more solder onto the top of them once we've got the wires in place. But I want to check continuity as well between that one wire and the component next to it. I think it's a resistor by the look of it. So from here to here, that works fine as well. I was a little bit worried because there's quite very dark, dull colours in there, so I didn't think it had much of a continuity, but it seems to be working fine. The next thing to do is these. I'm tempted whether to leave these in place. They've melted into the plastic and things, and I think if I start messing around with it, taking them out, it's going to get this plastic even more messed up. So I'm wondering whether just to leave these wires in place, wire these straight into the connections here, solder it from the other side, come back onto the front, and then give it a little bit of solder on the top as well, just so everything's nice and connected. Yeah, let's try that first. But before we get on with wiring this in, I just want to reflow a few things. So this connector along the top here, it just, no matter how much isopropyl and scrubbing I do on it, it's still looking a bit dull. So I'm going to probably run a little bit of flux across the whole top of this, heat up my soldering iron, a little bit of solder on it, and just run it along just to clean it up a little bit and hopefully reflow that a little bit. And same with this connector here and this connector here. They're all, that one, and this big one along the top are all connectors to the screen. I don't know whether that's the issue, whether it's a screen issue or whether it's something a bit bigger than that. But let's try that as a first instance, because they are a little bit messy along there. Give them a go. We'll reflow them and see where we get to. Cool. getting these wires back in now is going to be a little bit, not fiddly, because we haven't got the pins anymore. We're going to go straight with the wire straight in. So I'm going to strip this off a little bit longer, if I can. It's got a lot of solder on the edge of it, so making it a little bit more difficult. There we go. It's a bit more exposed wire on that one. That one's not too bad, but what we want to do is just expose a little bit more wire, because I want to put it through the through hole, but I also want to solder a tiny dab of it on the top as well as the bottom to make sure there's continuity with it where it should be. Just to make sure everything's connecting and doing what it should. So basically positive goes to that side, negative goes to that side there. What I'm going to do though is bend them back this way, hold them down with something or solder, just so they're held out of the way, and then I'm going to solder them briefly this side, and then I'm going to flip it over and solder them the other side too. So let's get a little bit of flux on that. Okay, so what I can do now, if I zoom out a little bit, I use my continuity test, I should be able to test from this battery terminal right the way through to this side of that component. Yeah, so that's nice, that's connected. It's doing what I want it to do. That one, I'm just going to test it from the ground to there. But I'm going to flip it over anyway and solder the other side, just so it's got a nice connection on there. Give it over. And to make sure they're not touching, so where they've come through, they're very close to shorting out. So what I want to do is just separate that out. I use my tweezers just to move that out a little bit, and then I'll add a little bit of solder on these just to hold them in place. But it's come through quite nicely actually already. Can I get it to move? Yeah. Okay, so that's quite nice already, but I just want to tidy up the solder on this side. Tiny dab of solder on this, just to solder it in place there. Okay, so they're okay. They're not amazing. It's better than a lot better than it was before. Hopefully that will give us a decent connection for these wires now, rather than that mess that was there before. It looks a lot better anyway. We'll put it back together now. I think now that I've reflowed all of these, I did reflow this chip as well, because that's the one that was corroded the most. I just put a little bit of flux on there, a tiny bit of solder, and just run over them all, just to get a little bit of connection, hopefully back onto them if they had any issues. We've reflowed these down the bottom and these as well over this side of the screen. I'll give everything a clean again just before I put it back together, just because I've used quite a bit of flux over this and I want to make sure it's nice and clean. Then I'll put it back together, then we'll test it, see if it works. Okay, so it's all back together. Let's power them on. Well, hopefully power it on, see if we get anything out of it. If we get any power, then I wouldn't mind testing a couple of things I've got around here. I've got an extension cable, and I got my, I don't know, one of my soldering irons. A desoldering pump one would be easy to do. So we'll test a couple of things with it as well. So let's first see if it powers on. Nice. Okay, so we're powering on. We've got our display properly now, rather than that garbled mess that we had before. Let's test a couple of items with it first, see how they get on, and then do a bit of a wrap up and see what we can do. Cool. Okay, so that worked out pretty well. I can now power on the system. I can get into the different modes. I can test all three different types of this can do: class 1, class 2 and extension cables. So this is working now, and I'm happy that it's back into that state it was when I first bought it. But I'm still a little bit dubious of whether that is a temporary fix, and I've just done a similar type of thing. I didn't heat it up this time like I did before, like I was advised to do. I've actually reflowed a number of the connectors along the top. I actually reflowed the power regs off camera. I forgot to do it on camera, and I thought they looked a little bit dry as well, so I reflowed those. Other than that, I didn't do a lot more to it. I've resoldered the power connectors, and that could be the issue. So if it wasn't getting a decent connection on both the top and the bottom of that power connector, it could have been the issue that it wasn't getting the power that it needed. These things are quite, although the batteries last a while, they're quite intense on what they use with the batteries. I looked at all the capacitors. They didn't look like they were leaking. I didn't have anything to replace them with. My capacitor box is huge, and I've got loads and loads of different readings of capacitors, but typically there's 4 capacitors on here, and I didn't have a single one of them to swap out. So the capacitors have remained in there for now. I've made a note of them though, so I'll put them on my next order. I'm ordering more kit, and I'll swap them out in the future. So yeah, at the moment I'm really chuffed with it. I'll give it a couple of days before sending it off for calibration, just to make sure it's still working, and when I send it off that they can calibrate it and test it properly. Then as soon as it gets back, I can start doing some pat testing and test some people's kit for them and everything else. So yeah, really chuffed that it's up and running again. Fingers crossed it's a permanent solution and not just a temporary fix again, but only time will tell with that one. Cool, thank you for watching. Any questions? Don't know what I can answer about this one. It's or any comments if you noticed anything or you've seen anything in this video that you think could be the long-term fix for this, whether it's one of those components on the board that I wasn't sure of, or anything else that you think could be this temporary heating up and fixing solution that was suggested to me before, then please let me know in the comments down below. I'm always interested in learning more about these things. I'm still new to electronics. I've only been doing it for a few years properly as a hobby. I'm not qualified, although I'm doing a qualification in it now, to learn more, because I just want to learn and learn about these things, just to know what things are doing and why things are doing what they should be doing. So yeah, thank you for watching, and I shall catch you soon.